Hi, I'm Yinka, and this is The Hurt Locker, a podcast where we open a door into men's mental health. Coming up, what's in your Hurt Locker?
Whew. It's a many-layered Hurt Locker. I think it's like Hurt Lockers with a bunch of different compartments in it. I have a traumatic childhood with a lot of loss.
How did that impact shape you? You're listening to The Hurt Locker, a podcast that opens the door into men's mental health. For today's episode, we have Seattle comedian, TV, television fame, Scott. Welcome to The Hurt Locker.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's great for you to be here. I'm just going to dive in now. It was something that you just said just slightly before we started recording, but I'm going to just ask you a broad question. Scott, what's in your Hurt Locker?
Whew. It's a many-layered Hurt Locker. I think it's like Hurt Lockers with a bunch of different compartments in it. I guess I heard another episode where I think it was might have been John Devlin or someone else was talking about how they have a friend who, whenever they meet a stand-up comedian, they ask them if they have a sick mom or dad.
Okay.
And I don't have a sick mom or dad, but I have a traumatic childhood with a lot of loss and confusion and a lot of those things that have followed me into my creative pursuits as I've gotten older. I spoke about it before, but like I am typically kind of an anxious person as a result, because I tend to be worried about the worst thing happening all the time. I think my hurt locker is full of anxiety. Sometimes it is turned out to be good to have that anxiety, but a lot of times in my life I have found that it is almost always unnecessary in a way.
Okay, and we'll delve into that a little bit more. So for the benefits of our British UK audiences, listeners, tell me, who is Scott Losse?
I'm a stand-up comedian from Seattle, Washington. I've been doing stand-up for about 14 years now. In recent history, probably in the last 6 months or so, I've become better known, for good or worse, as an online person, doing short reels on Instagram and TikTok and the like. I guess I would broadly call myself a comedian, even though if I had to choose that as like my profession on social media when they ask you what kind of account you want, and it feels funny to say that, but that is definitely what I am. I'm a comedian from the Pacific Northwest who's been doing the road for a long time, and I enjoy making relatable short form content that people seem to enjoy on the internet.
Thank you for sharing. When I asked Tim a little bit about you and your background and that, he says you're quite a reflective comedian, in the sense that you get people to maybe be curious and explore what's going on within themselves and around them as well. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think that would be fair. I'm an observational person. I like to talk about, what's going on with myself. I like to go, discuss things that maybe go to more vulnerable places. A lot of my stand-up, I think, over the years has become a way for me to find a healthy way to process things.
You said that and smiled at the same time.
Yeah, it almost feels like I'm tricking people into listening to a mini therapy session or something.
Absolutely.
Although
absolutely.
it's not necessarily sad per se, but I'll pepper in things that are actually have been hard for me, or that that have been difficult in my life, but in a way that's digestible by an audience who finds it to be funny. And I guess in getting people to laugh at those things, it helps me heal in a way, or it helps me not feel so alone with those things.
I
Um,
hear that. I hear that. You, before we started recording, you did mention, and you subsequently mentioned about anxiety, etc. But before
yeah,
we explore that a little bit, take us back to childhood. Were you born and raised in Seattle?
yeah, yeah. I was born in Seattle, Washington in 1980. I'm 44 years old. I was brought up in a pretty standard household. I have a sister who's a little older than I am. It was an interesting place, an interesting childhood. It was a childhood where I thought I knew certain truths about things, and then as I grew older, they kind of slowly fell apart, or new light was shed on what was really happening around me.
Give me an example.
So like my parents fought a lot as when I was little, and I came to think that that was pretty standard. I didn't understand why they were fighting, but I heard them arguing a lot, and it just kind of became the background music to my life after a while. And then years later, I would discover that my parents were not married and hadn't been married since I was very little because of some unfortunate business dealings of my father, and that they chose to stay together because they thought it would be good for us to have a dad around. And I can see why that might sound like a good plan, but once I found that out when I was 13, it kind of everything clicked together, and it made me understand things a little more. But it was also just pretty traumatic because it kind of upended what I thought I knew about my own life experience and my family.
Okay.
So that was, yeah, that was pretty bad. And around the same time that I found out that my parents weren't actually married, I had my father had been married before, so I have a lot of siblings and some half siblings, step siblings. I had a brother die in a car accident when I was 12, and then I had another brother commit suicide the year after. Within a span of 2 years, kind of everything became really shaky and uncertain, and the ground beneath my feet didn't feel so firm anymore, I
And
guess is what I'd say.
thank you for sharing that with listeners.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, you've used the word, it was traumatic, that
Hmm.
period, 12, 13, understanding about your parents' arrangement, losing
Yeah.
a brother to suicide, losing another one in a road traffic accident, as it were. How did that impact shape you?
It well, I went through a pretty deep depression at that time. Um,
Is that something that you can look back and know that this is what I was experiencing?
yeah, I don't think I thought about it in the moment. I think there's like a stereotype of a brooding teenage male that is
Yeah.
just like prevalent in society, and that it's easy for people to be like, oh, he's just being a punk, he's just acting out. But if I looking back now, you know, I'm actually the age that my parents, were when I was a kid. And looking back now, I can kind of see like that those were all signs that things weren't going so well. Um, I became pretty angsty. I started, experimenting and smoking and drinking at a pretty young age, experimenting with marijuana, nothing serious, but smoking weed, being out all the time. My parents having their relationship kind of fall apart at that age was really bad for me because I sort of decided that I wasn't going to do anything they said anymore. And
Absolutely.
they also and they also weren't very successful in reining me in because that trust kind of had been lost. So why would I listen to anything they had to say, even be it good advice. So it kind of, yeah, 1992, 93, everything came to a head, and it made I became kind of a shithead kid, and I just started doing whatever I wanted basically, and nobody could tell me what to do.
Was there a point during that period when you're 12, 13, and did your parents ever say to you or discuss this amongst themselves?
It was
Perhaps
interesting.
Scott needs to talk to somebody. He's not going to
No.
talk to us because we've let him down. We've
Yeah.
lost his trust, but could he speak to a professional?
Yeah, no one ever suggested it. It's I have a nephew now, who's 13, and he's really in touch with his emotions, and we talk about these things, and for the life of me,
Sorry, I'm smiling now. I'm moving forward and I'm wondering that nephew is probably like a mini me version of yourself. And you're
yeah,
thinking, wow, this guy's tuned in.
yeah, yeah. He's like he has the vocabulary I never had, because he's grown up in a household and an environment where people encourage that thinking. And no one ever asked me. That's kind of a theme of my adolescence, is kind of feeling like no one ever asked me if I was okay. Everybody just let me do whatever, and I think I ended up acting out a lot as a result of that. No one ever asked me if I was okay, and it just, I that's definitely something that I feel I can look back now as an adult and recognize that was a hurt. Like, that was a really hurtful thing,
Yeah.
that everything kind of fell to pieces, and nobody tried to see where I was at, you know? So it's always kind of, I think as a result, it's made me anxious, but also made me not always share how I feel with people.
Tell me, talk to me about that. Is there an element of resentment there? I.e., you've missed the boat. Why didn't you come and
Yeah.
talk to me 30 years
Yeah.
ago when I really needed you then?
Yeah. There's a lot of resentment. That's great. It's interesting, because it's only been in the last few years that I've recognized that is exactly how I feel about that time. Looking back, is, yeah, it made me really resent them, and it kind of overshadowed the good parts, in a way, because I felt like this basic need wasn't met. So now that I look back, it's kind of, it's painful, and it makes me really angry. And it's
Yeah.
not something I tell people a lot. Like, it hurts, and I'm, a grown ass man now or whatever, but
Yeah.
it hurts to look back and think about how that child was just kind of left to their own devices.
Gonna ask, both parents are still alive? Do you have a
Uh,
relationship with both parents?
my mother passed away in 2000.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And that's tough too, because that's a door that just, so many things never got addressed and never will be, and that's, certainly a rough thing to go through, when you realize that you're never going to get answers to any questions that you may have had for someone. Um, my dad is still alive. He's in his 80s now, and we don't have the greatest relationship over the years. So it's,
Is that a case of CBA can't be asked, as we say, or it's not worth
yeah,
getting
I
over
feel
those
like
stones, as it were?
that's how, yeah, it feels like too little too late. It feels like, I don't know, I could talk to him about it, but there's part of me that's definitely thinks, well, he's getting up there, and would it be worth it? Would he even tell the truth anyway? Would he, like, you know?
That
Hmm?
presupposes, though, that you've kind of already made up your mind about how
Yes.
honest and transparent he would be with you.
Yeah, I already have figured, and that's defense mechanism I think I have is I have already figured out what I think would happen, so I don't bother trying to do it because I'm so, and I could be wrong, but it's like definitely something I've noticed about myself is that I'll go into situations having already thought out the possible routes that it might go to and what I think is going to happen. And in this situation, I guess I've convinced myself firmly that it wouldn't be worth it, even if it might be good for both of us.
What are you afraid of?
I think I'm afraid of, I protect that part from, that's a part I protect. I don't want, it's like, I don't want him to know that hurt me. Because there's part of you that doesn't want people to know the hurt you have, because it gives them strength over you, I guess, in a way. Or
what makes you think that it gives him strength over you?
I guess I'm afraid that, yeah. I'm afraid, and it's like I'm old. I'm much older now, and I'm still afraid of being rejected by my father or have him tell me no, or have him invalidate my experience. So the fear of it not being positive is enough that I just let it go.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. Can I ask?
So it's interesting.
It is. It is. You yourself, have you ever entered therapy?
Yeah, I have.
And how was that experience for you?
It was good. It was good. I think a lot of guys are like this. A lot of men, I think, are averse to it or shy away from it. But my experience with it has been that it helped me work out some anxieties and some fears, and helped me move on in a couple different places in my life.
Okay. How old were you?
I was younger. I was in my 20s at the time. It was, a couple years after my mother had passed away. I was kind of struggling a lot with that. And I went for a little while and it felt good. In recent years, I haven't done it. And it's funny, like sometimes I think like, well, I don't know what if I don't find the right person, or what if the person isn't qualified to handle all the shit I'm about to throw at them, or what, I just, it comes from a place of,
Go on.
It comes from kind of an absurd place, right? Like, I don't like, well, this person they aren't ready for what I have to say. And, I've looked at websites of counselors locally, and I've made it's silly. I've made decisions based upon just reading their bio. I'm like, no, you can't handle. You don't know. You would fall apart, or you wouldn't be able to handle what I'm about to throw at you. And it's ridiculous, but it's a thing I really think, and it's probably just my way of avoiding going to therapy by making excuses. But it's a thought I've had. It's like, I'm too broken for you. You can't unravel this.
Okay. Okay. But I'm sure with the skilled helper, they'd be able to support you in the way that you needed support. That's if you want the support.
Right. Logically, it's silly. But yeah, it's actually, I was in the last week or so, I've been talking to my wife, and I am going to go see a counselor again.
Okay.
Because I've rounded that corner and decided that I should do it,
Props to you. You mentioned losing your mum in 2000, so you would have been 20 years old.
Yeah.
That with the loss of siblings as well. That's a lot of tragedy in a short period of time.
Yeah. It's hard. And, as an adult, you meet people who haven't even lost a parent yet. at
And
my, at my
yeah, at
age.
your age now, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah. And,
absolutely.
and, I wasn't, it was a really like, transitional period in my life already. I had just moved out of the house. I just started, working and kind of providing for myself, but I still needed that assistance. And my mother was she was a rock in my life. She
Okay.
was, she kind of, she was the one who I went to. I wasn't close with my father. I was extremely close with my mother, and she was the person who I felt like no matter what happened, I could turn to her and she would be there, to help no matter what I was going through.
And how did she support you emotionally? Were you able
Yeah.
to offload to her about the demons that you may have possessed?
I don't know if I really was very open emotionally, but she just always she had time and she took interest in the things that I was interested in, and never was very forthcoming with her love, right? She kind of always told you, always knew how she felt, and she was very had a lot of adoration towards her children, and it just felt safe. She was like a safe place. um we didn't talk about, I don't recall having conversations about how I felt emotionally with her. Maybe a couple times, but there was just she was just like my person in
Yeah.
life.
Yeah,
I listen to the podcast, and I know you always ask people who's the most important person in their life is.
absolutely. And
Um,
you're going to say your mum now, aren't you?
yeah, and I was gonna say it's my mother, um, but it's me. But it was my mom,
It was your mum
definitely
then.
for a long time. But
Okay.
it's you just have to. She was that person who I kind of felt like no matter what happened would always be there, and always um, be there for me. And losing her when I was 20, kind of, it rocked my world for sure. It made
Did
everything
you
feel
did
less
you
safe.
grieve?
Yeah.
Have you grieved?
For my mother,
Yes.
yeah, it was her birthday yesterday, actually.
Happy birthday, mum.
Yeah, happy birthday. She would have been 80 years old. It's crazy to think about it. But yeah, I didn't let myself grieve for a long time because I couldn't, because I was out of the house trying to live, and I couldn't. I felt like I couldn't take a break from trying to, pay their bills and trying to do everything I had to do, and there was no space for grieving. So I found I did other things. I drank too much. I did other things that kind of squashed my emotions, but I never, for years, never allowed myself just to be, too sad about her passing. And I'd say that probably went on for, you know, 5 or 10 years or so.
It's a long time.
Yeah, where I just kind of couldn't, because it felt like a new world had opened up to me, where, one day I felt very much like a child, because I still had both of my parents, and I still had this very strong maternal figure. And then when she went away, I was thrust out, you know, out of the nest completely, so to speak. And
Yeah.
then I was too busy panicking about what that was going to be like to
Surviving.
deal with. Yeah, just survival mode. And that went on. I probably did that till I was 30 or 31, really.
And then when you did eventually start to grieve, come to terms with the loss of your mum, how did that feel for you?
I mean, I think the truth that everybody discovers about these things is that once you allow yourself to feel and process, that you feel a sense of relief you wouldn't imagine that you would feel before. you feel that, catharsis. You feel that overwhelmingly good feeling to let it out. Because, I hadn't thought about how much it was distracting, or it's like a cloud over your head.
Yes.
So it was good. It was just, I guess when I did do it, I regretted that I hadn't allowed myself time to do it before,
Okay.
because it feels like I had wasted a lot of time.
Do you think that maybe one of the blockers to all of that had been maybe perhaps toxic masculinity? That guys, doesn't matter where they are in the world, they don't show their emotions.
Yeah, sure. I feel like I spent most of my, especially teenagers are, you see it now as an adult. I see this. It's like teenage boys are 100% machismo. They're just tough, and they don't want anybody to see them cry. And I felt, I felt like very much like that, like I was locked into some sort of traditional role that you're expected to be a certain way. You're not expected to be overly vulnerable. You're kind of expected as a man to be tough and strong and guarded. Like those were like the major male role models I had growing up, were like these kind of very masculine, strong men who didn't talk. and that was what I was like, okay, that's how you're supposed to be.
Was your father like that?
He he was funny. Like my dad, I like to say, like, I probably got my sense of humor from my father.
Okay.
But not emotionally very intelligent, I don't think, for most of my childhood. I specifically remember seeing him cry for the first time and being blown away.
How old were you?
I was 13 years old.
Oh, what does that do to your world?
I ran out of the house. I came home and he was crying, and I ran down the street. I just couldn't process it.
What was going on for you?
In my mind,
In your mind, what did it signify or mean to you?
the loss of us, it was like a weird reality shift. And like somehow seeing my father be so vulnerable, like, made me feel oddly unsafe, or like not unsure about everything, because he was supposed to be, he's supposed to be the one who doesn't cry when bad things happen, because that's like the model I had seen for 13 years. So when I watched him actually fall apart, it was just like somebody took my world and shook it up. And in a time when everything was already kind of shaky to begin with. And I just remember thinking, like, it was just so weird. I was just like, holy shit, he's crying. Things must really be bad. And he can't protect me. Like, I remember thinking, like, he can't be there to protect me, because look at him. He's falling apart. And I was like, what about, I remember thinking that, kind of like, what about me? Like, what am I going to do? The adults around me aren't holding it together. So I was just like afraid, and I just remember running away. And I ran down the street, and then my mom picked me up. She was coming home. She worked at a school, and she was coming home, and she picked me up. And I remember telling her that one of our brothers had passed away, and she took me home. But I just remember it was like my instinctual. It was just like that happened. I found out my brother had passed away. My dad's crying, and I just ran. And I was just running away from it. And I thought I could run away from it.
It's interesting because throughout our talk, you've used that word vulnerability.
Yeah.
and being vulnerable. What does that mean to you? Or how has it shifted, and what are the differences from when you were, say, 13 to now, age 44?
I think it, it's interesting. I think my shift in how I feel about being vulnerable has definitely impacted me as a performer, not just as a person, but as somebody online and somebody who does stand-up comedy in front of people. I'm not over time. I'm more comfortable being me and not as afraid of what people might think if they see who I really am. And I think a lot of vulnerability is just putting it out on the table and saying this is what it is, without any filter or without any fakeness, and just being okay that some folks aren't going to be receptive of that and not caring.
Yes.
But I wasn't like that for most of my life, and everything was through a veil of acceptance for a long time. Even like comedy, I started comedy in a way. I started comedy because the therapist I saw in my 20s told me he thought I was funny
Okay.
because I would spend the first 20 minutes of every session talking about my problems, but in a funny way, because that's how I would process everything. Like
Yes.
it makes it more digestible
Yes.
and easy.
Yeah.
Now it's a career, but it started as just a defense mechanism, really. I think,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I had a therapist who told me, he's like, you should try stand-up. There's a stand-up class. And I was like, okay. And, I went out, I gave it a shot, and it was the most horrifying thing I'd ever done, because I wasn't a public speaker. I didn't like talking to people in crowds, let alone strangers. So it was kind of a test. But then, like, I also look back at my childhood, and I was kind of always a funny kid because I was also like a really chubby kid, and people would pick on you. And if you don't fight people, you tend to make them laugh, and it has the same impact.
Yes, definitely. And they won't pick on you then,
Yeah, you make the bullies like you, which is very toxic, actually. But it worked. It got them to leave me alone.
Absolutely. What does your dad, if you talk to him about it, think of your career as a comedian?
I think he loves it. I think he thinks it's cool. He's he's really obsessed with the money aspect of everything. I think he's always been kind of a funny person. Why is it so bright? Here, let's do this. That's better. American flag, how tacky. This is my nephew's bedroom. Why does he have all this crap on the wall? Try to find a better place. My dad is obsessed with how much money people can make doing non-traditional work.
Okay.
So that's the part, I think, because I think it's generational. I think I totally understand it. So he's like, how much do you get paid for that gig? What's the most you've ever gotten paid for the gig? How much did you get paid? And I'm like, well, the hourly rate's pretty good compared to a normal job.
What do you think your mum would have made of your career?
That's a hard thing. Like, every small success I get, I'm reminded that she would have been really proud, and that it's sad. It's kind of, I think she would have been thrilled. I think she would have thought it was really cool. I think she would have thought it was not, I don't know if she would have been, surprised or not, given but I don't know. I was always like a jokey little kid, so I guess it worked out. But, I try to find comfort in the fact that I pretty much know what she would have said already, based on our, those years I had with her.
Yeah.
I think, but that's hard. It's an absence, and it doesn't go away. It just gets a little less crappy every year. Sometimes I'll find myself like on the anniversary of her death or her birthday, I'll be like, I don't feel quite right. And it's,
And then you realize what day it is.
yeah. And I think it's
Then it
just
makes
totally
sense.
like the body knows.
The body keeps the score.
Yes, I've heard you guys reference that. I think
Yeah.
it's true. It's like yesterday I was like, things are bad. And my sister messaged me and she's like, it's mom's birthday. And I was like, well, I feel like that makes a lot of sense then. But yeah, I think she would have been excited.
One from Tim. He says you never appear angry in your reels and digital content. You have a reflective, introspective, almost mellow manner.
Yeah.
What do you feel about that?
Yeah.
He's trying to be deeper than me, Tim is. That's what he's trying to show off anyway.
I appreciate that he watched it. I love that people enjoy what I'm doing now online with the reels because it's the most me I've ever been. And those things speak to people, and it's like that's how I live my life now, there's a lot of toxic stuff online and there's a lot of negativity online.
Yes.
And I hate it. And I just want, I'm a mellow person. I try not to let things get to me anymore. I've been through a lot in life. I've had a lot of losses and a lot of shit happen. And I've come through the other side realizing that spreading more pain is such a shitty thing to do. And being rude to strangers is such an awful way to spend your time. And I just, I never want to be angry online. I want what I put out there to be positive. I never want to look back at something I've created and think, well, I don't feel mad anymore. Why did I put that up?
Absolutely.
But also it's just, I'm more zen than I used to be. And I firmly believe that you should only put stuff out there that makes things better, or that makes people happy, or that makes people think, but that isn't like a negative thing, because you're just adding to the overall negativity of the world, and there's too fucking much of that.
There is. Do you meditate?
No, I've tried. I feel like I have the world's busiest mind. It works well for social media because I'm just constantly thinking of new crap to put online, but it does not do well for trying to be mindful in the moment.
Okay. What does silence conjure up for you? What does stillness conjure up for you? Yeah, I just seen you blow out there.
I think I just like I tried recently to do a mindfulness study through a university, and they signed me up as a test subject, and they gave me all these instructions, and they sent me guided meditations, and every time it happens, I start thinking about something else, or I get wrapped up in what I'm thinking about I have to do, or if I have anxiety, or if there's a lot of stuff I have to do this week, or I'm overwhelmed by my schedule, and I just, it's kind of a whirlwind. I've always had a hard time just being still. I have a lot of tattoos, and I'll tell you what, getting tattooed, I've always joked with my wife, is as close as I ever get to meditating.
Okay.
Because in
that.
In that moment, when you got a needle in your skin and it hurts, sometimes the only thing to help you out of it is to just go to a place in your mind where nothing is happening.
Yes.
So I know it's possible. I just wish it was possible without getting tattooed. But
takes practice, and practice.
Yeah, I did this study, and it would ask me like, how focused do you think you were on this, like in the last 5 minutes? And I was always like, 2 out of 10. I started thinking about a joke or about something else. And I don't know, I've always had a very busy mind. So it just, but it's something I've dabbled in and it's something I'd like to pursue again because I definitely can see how it would be good because I tend to stress myself out with all the thinking and it would be nice to give myself a break sometimes.
How does your wife deal with your overthinking, your anxiety?
She it's funny. We're kind of yin and yang in a lot of different ways. I think that's like, pretty important.
Yeah.
Um she's good at telling me when I need to stop or
Do you
telling me when I should, yeah, or telling me when I need to take a break.
do you listen to her?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Yeah. She's kind of that voice in my head that's like, take a day off. Don't do anything today. Why don't you clear your calendar today? Why don't you do something you want to do? Why don't you go have coffee and sit, And that's nice because I need that because I'm not very good at doing that for myself. I'll fill my calendar up and I will overextend myself and I will become overwhelmed. And the only person to blame is me.
100%.
And yeah,
We've spoken to quite a few comedians uh, from the
we're a
US.
broken lot.
Well, there's the question I was going to ask you. How do you deal with the constant traveling, being on the road, being in hotel rooms, seeking adulation, and then once that goes, you're striving for more?
Yeah, it's like it's like a validation tour or something. It's really bizarre. Um, I try to keep myself grounded in my family and in things that are more feel more quote unquote real, I think is how I do it. Um, I I try to not surround myself with comedy too much because it's not an accurate representation of the rest of the world. And it also you end up with surrounding yourself with people who all have kind of the same priorities and experience. And so I try to do comedy and I embrace it. And I also try to stay away from it when I can, just to get myself back in a normal flow. It's easy to be out there and be sad. I try to find novelty in it. I mean, it's who not a lot of people do that job. Not a lot of people get to go into a town and do a gig and have people clap just because you showed up, and that's amazing. It's amazing. But I also try to just give myself time to do really normal things because I think without balance, it just it feels like you're living in some bizarro world.
I guess it can be quite addictive then. Does that
Yeah.
mean then that your network, your circle of friends, there'll be a certain proportion who aren't comedians then?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's important. I have friends who mountain bike and I have friends who snowboard and I have friends who just we enjoy the same music. And those
Cool.
people don't do stand up. And that's nice because you get to hang out with people who don't give a shit where you are next week or like how much you're getting paid or like what the other person or how many followers somebody has that you're jealous of or it's just like normal people. So I think that's super important. I mean because if all you do is focus on this one thing, which is like this crazy dopamine rush thing,
Yes.
it becomes really insane. And when it's not there, it makes you kind of, addicted to the feeling, and you just
100%.
find a hard time doing things with the regular folk,
In one or two instances, comedians have spoken, have told us on the Hurt Locker about experiencing thoughts of suicide.
Sure.
Is that something that you've encountered?
Yeah. Yeah. I heard you say that statistic before. And I've,
Which one? Was that the
uh,
80 to 100%?
yeah, like if you've known somebody who committed suicide, you're more likely.
Yes.
Yeah.
How did that resonate with you?
I felt seen. I felt, yeah. I mean, I felt like it was nice to hear actually, because I think, you know, it doesn't feel it's shameful, right? To feel those feelings or to have those thoughts. And uh society kind of tells you like that's bad, those are not, you shouldn't feel that way, and you shouldn't, but it's not uncommon to feel that way. And in so many ways we're told just to shut up and not talk about that, and that doesn't help either, so hearing someone say it was kind of nice, because I was like, oh yeah, I did feel that, I have felt that. And it's good to hear that that's normal, so to speak,
Yes.
because otherwise you suffer in silence, right? And that's a lot worse.
In yourself, when you have experienced those thoughts, have you been able to turn to anybody for support?
Yeah. Yeah. I have friends out, close friends who I've known for a long time, and people who I've told, and people who I felt safe and that I knew wouldn't like shame me or treat me like I needed to be put somewhere. Um, which was good. I mean, I feel like a lot of people don't speak up because they're just afraid that they're gonna be treated like they're, um, you know, horribly mentally ill or something. And there's just such a stigma around mental illness, period. So I think a lot of people, the default is probably not to say anything about it, but being able to tell somebody actually made it better, and it made it so that I was, less likely to do something. Really.
Yes.
I mean, I'm here,
And
so it worked out.
do you, I mean, we had one of our earliest recordings was with comedian and writer Jim Mendrinos. And it was
Okay.
something that he spoke about how there was one or two of the more known stars in America, comedians, who were starting to talk about their mental health. Do you see that as a pattern that's increasing now? And is this something that you're doing yourself?
Yeah, it's my stand-up. I don't post a lot of it online, which is funny because I've ended up becoming more known for these like posts where I talk about myself, or I talk about being a certain age, or I talk about, other topics. But I try to pepper in things about my depression or about neurological issues, or things that are more relevant to my human experience. And I think you see it a lot more. I think sometimes audiences can be have a hard time digesting it if at any point they assume that you're going through it, like having a hard go. Sometimes crowds can pull back because they're like, oh, are you, if they think the struggle is too real, they tend to freak out. So I think there's a tendency for comedians not to talk about it, but you definitely see it more and more, especially now that mental health seems to be on the forefront and the newer generation is much more comfortable with it. Whereas before, therapy speak would probably turn off a lot of people.
Would you say then that things are improving?
Yeah, I think they are. I think so. I think there's still, stigma out there, but it
Yeah.
feels like it's getting better.
I'm just reflecting now.
Yeah.
I mean, in the UK, men are still three times more likely than women to die by suicide, as it were. And it's that going back to what we grew up in, the culture, the environment that we grew up in, and that men are supposed to be seen as this strong, solid type. And
Yeah.
it's BS at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I never was. I was never tough. I was just like pretending. I was just putting on an act to try to survive. But at the end of the day, I wasn't a tough guy. I was just kind of a scared kid who was just, doing all I could and using the role models that I had to emulate what I thought being a man was. And now that's so fun. It's like, what is being a man?
You know what? You're not interviewing me. I'm interviewing you. What is it? What is it to be a man?
What is it to be a man?
Yeah, you tell us.
Tim said, "You're a kickboxer, aren't you?" No, that's just my bullshit bio. I can't figure out what to put on my bios. That's so funny. I'm undefeated. Yeah,
Undefeated kickboxer. Okay, that's a man.
I hate. That's so funny. I'm very tough. I'll kick everybody's ass. But I can't. I hate bios. Like people put. Like I rewrite my bio all the time, and I keep coming back to undefeated kickboxing champion because it's so bullshit if you knew who I was. But occasionally people are like, "Oh, is that true?" I'm like, "Fuck no." Like,
did you even have a fight? Do you even kickbox?
I've never fought anybody. I wanted to when I was younger. I think as like men like romanticize fighting in a way.
Yes.
But then I've seen fights and they're not romantic. They're a lot worse in real life, and it gets rid of that desire pretty quickly when you see someone actually get hit in the face. But I just remember as a kid thinking, "Oh, I want to fight somebody," and it's such like a weird thing, but it definitely is just like what it's what you're fed as a child. It's just like G.I. Joe, He-Man, fucking kick ass. That's what you're supposed to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can I ask, do you have any children yourself?
No, I don't have any kids. My dad is Mormon. So, and I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but they tend to have a reputation for having large families. So I have a lot of nieces and nephews.
Okay.
And I'm fine with that. I decided not to have kids. It just, I don't know. We had a couple of different reasons, but we just decided not to, and I'm just kind of happy spoiling the other ones. And then I have a lot of pets, and those are my kids, I guess.
Come on, what pets have you got?
I have two chihuahuas, and I have a miniature golden doodle, and I have 3 chickens and a barn cat. And 2 snakes. Somehow I ended up with 2 snakes. So I have it's a zoo at my place. I'm not sure what happened there. It was like I got older and I decided to get all the animals that my parents wouldn't let me have.
So Scott,
yeah.
How's it been today on the Hurt Locker for you?
It's been good. I've been needing a therapy session for a long time. So I was happy when you guys reached out.
Stop that now.
No, it's been fantastic. It's been nice talking to y'all and being able to open up and say things that I don't get an opportunity to say. Men we're not encouraged, even with my, some of my closest friends. You don't have conversations like this because there's so much stigma or fear. So it's great. It's great to talk and just be able to talk openly and not have that any blocks in the way.
And if any of your friends were struggling with their mental health, how would you support them? What would you say? I'm sure you have supported them in the past.
Yeah. I'm always happy to listen to people, and I think it's important. I think it's important to let the people in your life know that, you're an ear, that you'll listen to any problem that they have and not be judgmental. And of course, getting help is a necessary element of these things. It's important to talk to people when friendly conversation alone can't do the trick. I've had people go through stuff in my life, and sometimes people just want to be heard.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Scott, are you going to be over in the UK anytime soon?
Man, people ask.
Well,
I hope so.
Again. We're asking
I'm going to try. I have some pals who are doing Fringe this year, and I'm thinking next year I'm gonna throw something together. So I might do it 2025. I think I might.
25.
Yeah, I might have a Fringe. Do Fringe in 2025. That's what my goal is right now. I was just talking to somebody about it the other day, but yeah, I'll be on in the United States of America for a little while, and then hopefully I'll start traveling out there.
Tim's just wrote, we know a few comedians with clubs now, so we'll just hook you up to a few.
Hey, yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love to get out there. I mean, I've traveled a little bit in the UK. I've done the standard London shit, and
Yeah.
it would be nice to go back.
How were you received?
I was just a tourist, so people hated it. But as a comedian, who knows? They might like me.
I'm sure they'll love you.
I would
I'm
hope
sure
so.
they'll love you. I want to say this, and this is just to focus our minds. We've been recording for almost an hour now, and in that time, globally, 90 people will have died by
Mm,
suicide, and that's just a
wow.
conservative estimate.
Yeah. It's incredible having lived through it in my childhood, as 13-year-old, having experienced that with my brother, and just knowing that there's people for whom that feels like it's the only answer. It's just heartbreaking, and I wish there was more that people could do to make mental health accessible and destigmatized. And I see it around here in Seattle. I see it with the homeless population. There's, a lot of people can be very cruel with regards to this, but it's it's a crisis. And, yeah.
Can I? Sorry, I was going to end this, but it was
Well,
just
I
because
fucked up.
well, no, I was going to ask for you when you lost your brother to suicide. How were you treated? How did you feel?
I was devastated, it was suicide was, I mean, I live in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle, and there's like a suicide's not an unknown in this dark gray corner of the world. It's kind of, so I was shocked, I was shocked. I never thought that that would happen in my family. Um, but I remember after that happened, I remember just being very protective of his legacy, and also really sad, really sad that we never talked, and that I just wished I could go back and ask him how he was doing. That was what struck me. I was like, fuck, if only someone had like talked to him.
How how old was he when he
He was
died?
29.
20, 29.
Yeah,
But you were 12, 13.
13.
You were 13.
Yeah, yeah. And it was just, heartbreaking. But I remember for a long time I was like, it was weird actually, because after he passed, 29 became like a weird age, because I remember being every year I get closer to 29 and being like, eventually I'm going to be older than he was. Now I'm much older than that, but yeah, it's it's a hard thing for a 13-year-old to go through. It's, you're
100%. 100%. How did people treat you knowing that your brother had died by suicide?
they were pretty nice about it. I felt like at the time that it kind of exploded everybody around me. So people close to me weren't necessarily checking in, but people out in the proximity, around, were very nice about it. Um, it's just, it's it's a it's awful. It's awful thing. It's, the person feels like they have no way out, and then it also sometimes people in the family don't even recognize the signs. So it comes as like an utter shock. It's kind of like the year before I lost a brother in a car accident, and it was almost that level of shock and awe, just like an
Yeah.
unexpected out of nowhere. So it makes me more aware of people's emotional health now, of the people I'm around. And I
Yeah.
I cue in more to when I see or hear people kind of behaving in ways that make it sound like they're struggling. And I try to really be there for people as much as I can.
Your radars
Yeah.
are tuned.
Yes. Yeah. I can tell if somebody is being a little off or manic or a little, they have these signs. And I guess the net positive is just that it made me more of an emotionally intelligent human being.
It feels like that's something that you reflect on and consider frequently. The what ifs or if onlys.
Yeah. Yeah. I try not to dwell on the what ifs, but especially as things get better and I have small successes in my life and I'm reminded of everything that was lost along the way.
Yeah.
That was a critical part in the development of who I am now, but also tragic in many ways. It's like I wouldn't be who I am necessarily.
Okay, let me ask you the question. Would you forgo all those tragedies?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I would. I don't know. It's not healthy thinking maybe to think about the past and what you would do to change it. I guess I would hope maybe that I would find this route regardless. It is interesting though, but I think so much of it informs what I do that I would be a different person had I not experienced those things.
Yeah.
Maybe I wouldn't feel the need to make the people around me happy as much as I do now, or seek laughter and try to spread joy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say. I'd love it if they were back. If I had to trade, I would, But life, I guess that's the lesson I learned over the years, is that life is incredibly, cruel to say the least. It just goes the way it goes, and you have to find a way to keep swimming.
100%. And yet life can be incredibly beautiful.
Yeah. So I try to look for those moments, kind of keep everybody who I've lost along the way in my heart and try to do it for them.
Scott Losse, thank you for sharing what's been in your Hurt Locker this evening.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Hurt Locker. Please give us a rating or share with another listener. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Hurt Locker Pod.